We're back here on the 80s at 8. And a couple weeks ago, we were playing songs from 1989. And I played a song that I remembered from my preschool days called Don't Shut Me Out by Kevin Paige. When we were talking about the song, both Craig and I said we really loved the song. He was an artist that had two hits in the top 40. But after that, we couldn't find much information on him. Well, that has stopped right now because we are lucky enough to have that very artist with us right now. And not only did he have two hits in the top 40, just a really talented musician. Kevin Paige, thank you so much for joining us on the 80s at 8 today.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
You bet. So I believe, are you joining us from Memphis today?
I am. That's right.
And is that where born and raised, or are you originally from Memphis?
I was raised here. I moved here when I was about 4 or 5 years old with my very large family who was from Western New York up near Buffalo. So I still hold on to my Buffalo Bills football allegiance, but I was raised in Memphis.
How much do you think being raised in Memphis kind of impacted you musically?
Probably a lot, but not at first. At first, I was just influenced by listening to the albums that my older siblings, when you have 8 older siblings, you get a very diverse music collection that starts entering your young brain and your library of, references for future musical taste and all that. So I was really drawn to Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Jackson 5, really soul music and music that was happy. To be honest, because some of my siblings were into things like Black Sabbath, and I was like, oh my God, that scares the heck out of me, So I really realized very young that I was drawn to pretty sounding things, beautiful sounding things, orchestrated things, horn sections, just stuff that sounded positive. But once I became a teenager and started to play some instruments, I did join several bands around the Memphis area. And to be honest, I didn't get to play with many white musicians because Memphis has a very large African-American musician pool. So, and that's the music I was drawn to anyway. So that's where I would say Memphis started really getting into my blood, being around so many Black musicians who played R&B the way it was supposed to be played. So yeah, I was that's when it kind of entered my system around high school.
You bet. Do you think some of those R&B kind of notes, did that kind of fuel your self-titled album? I mean, there's a lot of different styles of music, and do you think that influenced it?
Well, it's funny because when I actually got a record deal and went to make a record, it didn't necessarily sound like all the things I'm telling you I was influenced by, which is weird. I guess come 1987, I was so taken with artists like where Michael Jackson was at the time, where George Michael was at the time, where Prince was at that time, that I knew I couldn't necessarily chase the sounds that I grew up on and loved so dearly because the times had changed too much. What was cool in 1976 was not going to be cool in 89, So I really had to abandon all this very jazzy, lush sounding music that I adored to be more contemporary. And I did love things like George Michael and the Faith album I was obsessed with, so that's probably what my record sounded more like.
Tell you what, before we dig into your music, is it okay if we play a couple of the songs two of the songs that we are set to play today are actually artists that you just mentioned. And would you mind if we played them and you talked a little bit about how they influenced you?
Oh, sure.
So the first song is Prince. And I know you actually did a tribute show along with your wife to Prince, correct?
Correct. And right after he died, I knew I wanted to do a tribute show just to show, I guess, as a musician, how much of the detail of that music I absorbed and what a school that was. His whole library of his whole, discography was just class for me, master class for me as a musician. So I didn't jump into, after he passed, right away doing a tribute because I wanted to make sure it was really, really accurate to the sounds and all the synthesizer and the drum machine and all that sort of stuff, that it sounded just like it. It wasn't just thrown together. So yes, I took about 3 months to put it together and produce it. Then we took it to the stage, and I'm really proud of that on YouTube.
You bet. And actually talk about it. Can they find that on your YouTube channel right now if they're interested in hearing that?
Yes, it says Kevin and Bethany Paige, my wife, tribute to Prince, I believe is how it's worded.
Perfect. Well, the song we're going to play again, we are with Kevin Paige, a great musical artist from the 80s and still very heavily involved with music. The song we're going to play right now is Raspberry Beret by Prince. Is that one of the songs that you covered in your show?
It is not necessarily one of my favorites, but I will say when it came out, it was such a bold move for Prince to turn away from sort of the hard kind of funk he did and the rock stuff with like a Let's Go Crazy. And when I heard sort of the psychedelic sounds of Raspberry Beret, I thought, wow, this dude consciously is aware enough to go, I can't just repeat what Purple Rain was. I'm turning this direction, and nobody saw it coming. So I really dug that and respected that.
Yeah, it's great. And he had so many great songs, and this is just one of the ones we hadn't played yet. So here it is, Raspberry Beret, Prince on the 80s at 8. We're back. That was Prince with Raspberry Beret. We're joined by artist Mr. Kevin Paige. And now we got a song from Michael Jackson. Did you consider him a pretty heavy influence as well?
Oh, my gosh. Did I? Yes. When I got to see the Bad Tour, I think it was 1987, maybe 88. But that was just, and I had seen him before in 1980, and it was just life-changing. That guy, as Sheryl Crow once said, when he hits the stage, he changes the molecules in the room. And I'm like, that is so true. There's this uncontrollable frenzy that goes on just when you know he's about to come on stage. I mean, I understand probably what people said about seeing Elvis. I never got to see Elvis. I was too young, but I'm sure he had that same sort of energy that you just can't put your finger on.
For sure. And his thing was something, I mean, when he came out with it in the early 80s, I mean, nobody else was necessarily doing exactly what he was.
Oh, and absolutely not. Matter of fact, I loved like the Jacksons in 1980 and before and all that stuff. And when Thriller came out, it was so different from what he had ever done before, like Off the Wall, that again, it took me a second to get adjusted to it. I was like, well, this isn't that interesting when I heard Billie Jean, but gosh, then it grows on you. And the more you look back and on his career, you just go, wow, he was going for the throat. There was no stopping that train that was going to be Thriller.
What's interesting, the song we're playing right now is from 1982, and it's off of Thriller, but it's probably one of the few songs off of Thriller that I think still has kind of that sound from Off the Wall, and it's Wanna Be Starting Something.
Yeah, great one.
You bet. Is this a song you've ever covered, Kevin?
Oh, yeah. We play it in our show, our pop shows we do. It takes so much energy. You're exhausted after playing it, though. You got to be really up for that one.
How difficult is it to cover somebody like Michael Jackson when he did have so much energy?
Well, it wasn't difficult when I was younger. It's difficult now, so I let my wife sing it.
That's awesome.
Well, it's here high. You know, the singing, the register is so high, and your voice changes for somebody like me. And I just can't hit those notes anymore. But my wife does great Michael Jackson.
And that's the thing. You got the vocal challenges and then probably just the physical and energy challenges of trying to keep up with, his stage presence.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. It's exhausting.
Sounds great. Well, right after this, we're going to start digging into your music. Thanks so much for talking about Michael Jackson and Prince, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Here it is. Want to be starting something. Michael Jackson, the 80s at 8. And we're back with Kevin Paige. Kevin, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Late 80s, you got a record deal. What was that feeling like to finally, you've worked in different bands and you worked really hard and been around music your whole life, I assume. What was it like to get that record deal?
Very scary, because for me, all I'd ever really focused on was the musical aspect. I originally was a drummer when I was young and really became good at that. Then I started playing piano and picked up the bass guitar, the electric guitar, but I didn't sing. I only sang out of necessity. Around 1986, I got tired of waiting on other band members to write and do, make some demos and all this stuff. So I finally just said, man, I'm going to quit playing drums and I'm going to start singing. And it was 2 years later that I got signed. So if you know anything about singing, 2 years is not much experience at all. To be honest, it was very scary because I really felt like I wasn't ready yet. And in retrospect, I wasn't. But when the door opens, you have to run through it, ready or not. So, I took it. But it was very scary going on live TV and kind of knowing I hadn't had a ton of experience as the singer, and it was challenging.
So on your self-titled album, you're a songwriter. Did you write all of the songs, or how did that all work out?
I did. There was one I didn't write, but yes. And, in retrospect, I look back and think, if you want to give advice to any young artist, the best advice you can give is use other people's talents to better yourself. So I wished I had not written everything. I wished I had not played everything. You need other people's experience to bring to the table to better yourself. So that's my biggest regret, is I didn't use other songwriters.
You bet. But I'll tell you what, I mean, it's obviously the music did. I mean, I'm sure you hear it all the time that there are people that still, think of your music and still, I mean, like I said, I remember hearing Don't Shut Me Out when I was in daycare. And for years, the no.
Yeah.
I mean, that still is in my head. So, I mean, you obviously, wrote music that resonates with people still today.
Well, cool. Yeah. I mean, the ear candy of all those tracks, and especially Don't Shut Me Out, I'm still very proud of the production of it and the energy of it. I just mean, like, when it comes to fine tuning lyrics, I regret maybe not having some more maturity around me that could have just taken it to another level. I didn't appreciate lyrics that they would have such a, in looking back years later, you're going to wish those lyrics were really well crafted.
So let's talk a little bit about Don't Shut Me Out, because we'll play that first. Hit number 18 in 1989. And what kind of went behind writing that song and kind of producing that track?
Well, I was telling a buddy of mine who actually was a songwriter, and we were together to write a song. I started telling him kind of some stuff. Well, there's this girl and she doesn't want everything to do with me, blah, blah, blah. So I'm telling him the story. He goes, "Oh, you mean like Don't Shut Me Out?" I said, "Yeah." So I'm working on it. We're together, and he sees me kind of take off, and he's like, "Dude, you don't need me. Just write the song by yourself." I was like, "Okay." So I went and wrote the song by myself. But actually, that guy, Oliver, gave me the title, which was very generous. Although, you can't copyright a title anyway. But but I was very obsessed as well with, like I said, George Michael, the song Monkey, the remix that was out. I was obsessed with Duran Duran's I Don't Want Your Love at the time. So that's kind of the musical vibe. I guess my direction was kind of those records as kind of a reference of an area I wanted to hit.
And would you say this song was a big part of a lot of the things that did come for you? I mean, or was that in place before, like playing with, opening for Debbie Gibson and being on like MTV or the Mickey Mouse Club? Did that kind of stuff happen after this song, or was that?
Oh, sure. Oh, it was only because of that song. Of course. Yeah. To get a record even in the top 60 is so difficult, and the work you have to do going around to all the radio stations and begging people to listen to your record and play your record. And the trick to getting a hit record is getting all these different major cities to play it at one time, like within the span of a few weeks. And that is really difficult to do. And Don't Shut Me Out lingered around the charts for months because, excuse me, I can never get the momentum of everybody playing it at the same time, which is why, it peaked at number 17 on the R&R charts, 18 on Billboard. But had I got, it did really well in so many cities, much higher than 17, just never at the same time, firing on all pistons at the same time, if you will.
Well, it is a great song. Let's hear it now. We'll talk a little bit more when we come back, and then we'll go into your other music. So do you want to introduce the song? It's yours, I mean.
Yes, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you remember it. Here's Don't Shut Me Out.
That was Don't Shut Me Out by Kevin Paige on the 80s at 8. And we're joined by Kevin Paige. Kevin, what was it like to hear that song on the radio for the very first time?
Incredible. I was in Memphis, actually, when I heard it. It seems like my brother is in radio, by the way, in Memphis. And it seems like he's the one that I first heard play it.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was actually on a R&B, a black station here in Memphis as a DJ. So I was kind of shocked he played it because it has more of a, kind of a pop rock feel, but he played it and it was incredible. Matter of fact, I remember one time I was in a mall about to do a show that night, and they had, like a Brookstone that has radios on and stuff. And the radio started playing my song. And I got so excited. I said to the worker there, I said, "That's my song." And they're looking at me like, "Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, they think I mean like, that's my jam." I was like, "No, that's my song. That's me." And they're like, "What?" They just, so many people don't believe you when you say something like that you really end up feeling stupid.
That's incredible. Wow. That, it's that thing you do kind of thing when they're watching in the motel. I mean, that's just, I've always been interested in what that feeling is like.
Oh, it's awesome.
Now another song that hit the top 40, Anything I Want. Talk a little bit about the songwriting and kind of how that song all kind of came together, Kevin.
Well, I actually had that song before I got the record deal, which Don't Shut Me Out, I did not. But I was really obsessed with Cameo too, which is a funk band. And the original way that I cut Anything I Want on my demos was much funkier. And I really regret not cutting it that way, but it still came out cool. But I was, the way it is on the record is much more straight ahead, kind of pop friendly. But I don't know. I was just, again, being in Memphis, playing in lots of R&B bands. I guess I probably felt like, is anyone going to take this white guy serious trying to do funky music? So there's a little bit of that in there. But I was happy to hear that song made its way onto a bunch of aerobics tapes at the time.
Oh, really?
People would say, "I was working out to Anything I Want." I was like, yes, cool. I wished I had been working out.
As far as videos there on YouTube, the one that really stood out to me was when you played at the Apollo. And to me, that live version of that song, it just turned out great. And the way you performed it, and it just, man, I really liked that song live.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah. What's funny is for all these decades since then, I really haven't played that song at all at any of my shows. And I just put it back in our set and kind of did a rearrangement and stuff. And when we played it, when we rehearsed it, we were all like, wow, this like kills live. It's got a lot of energy and stuff. So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
You bet. So let's hear it. And again, if you want to introduce Anything I Want, that would be huge, Kevin.
All right. Well, here it comes. I can do, you can do, we can do anything I want to.
We are back with Kevin Paige, and that was his song, Anything I Want, which hit number 29 on the top 40 on the Billboard chart. And just talk, what was that time like, Kevin? It was an interesting time in pop music. One of our guests that this spring was Terrence Trent D'Arby, and he just talked about how that time, that late 80s, early 90s, how music was just changing. Did you feel that?
Correct. That's what I was about to say. You could tell it was changing. Pop music was suddenly fastly becoming uncool, which obviously freaked me out. And to be honest, the record label I was on kind of knew that it was going more towards a grunge thing. And they kind of halted progress on anybody making any new records. Like for me, especially being a pop guy, they were like, "Well, can you do rock stuff?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not a rock act. That's not what I can't pretend to do that." So I got just put on hold, to be honest. And then the record label, Chrysalis, was being sold to a bigger conglomerate. And so everything was frozen. They couldn't let anybody go to do anything else. You were stuck. So I really got frozen in time there and couldn't do anything else, which was a shame, was the death of my record career. When you said, we didn't hear anything else from him afterwards. Well, that's why I couldn't do anything else.
How tough is that as an artist when you have, I'm sure, tons of songs and tons of things you want to share with the listeners after you got on radio? How difficult was that at that time?
It was really hard because I started performing more after Don't Shut Me Out, Anything I Want fell off the charts. And I started getting better and my songwriting started getting better. I really was working on my craft, and I had come up with a few things that I really thought were pop hits, like way better than what I had out originally. So it was not fun just sitting on that stuff. And by the time I was let go and was trying to shop around for another record deal, oh my gosh, everything had really, really changed. 94, 95. You couldn't get arrested if you were a pop thing. That's why there was such a gap between 89 and say 99 when stuff like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys came out because there had been a void of pop music, really pure pop music for a good 10 years there. But, by that time I'm 33, not 23. And it's hard to get a record deal as a 33-year-old pop artist.
And at that time, Kevin, did you just stay at it, kept playing, or what did you do with your career?
I was making a living performing here in Memphis, so as all musicians do, they fall back on gigging, and I was producing some music. I got into producing a lot of Christian records and had some good runs with some of that. One of the albums was nominated for a Grammy, which was awesome, that I produced. So I really began. Then at that point in 99, I wanted to be a worship leader. So I started working at a church. My wife and I, 15, 16 years at this one church. So that really became my passion.
Would you say contemporary Christian music, is that still a big place where your heart's at?
Not as far as writing or trying to get any success at it, just more in the church right here in my home place, just contributing to the faith community right here, not trying to do it commercially.
You still play with your wife a lot, right? How many years have you been performing with your wife?
Oh, about 20, I'd say. We got married in 2000 and it's 2022 now. Yeah, it's been a long time and she's great. I don't know if you've ever looked her up on YouTube, Bethany Paige.
What a beautiful voice she has. Oh my gosh. The song you wrote, I believe, was Glory Be, and I played it the other day, and I just couldn't believe how beautiful the song it was and how beautiful her voice was.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. And what is it like to share this passion with your wife and to hit the stage with your wife so frequently? What's that like?
I'm glad you asked, because we just talked about that yesterday. We were saying how awesome it is to get to work together. And it's kind of a flip version of most married couples. When we get home, we tend to kind of get out of each other's space and leave each other alone because we've spent so much time doing our job together. And that job requires so much trust in each other since we're singing and doing music. And it requires putting out the same kind of energy as your marital partner. It's just a really awesome bond and something that happens when you're doing that I can't imagine having a married life where people go to your job for 8 hours a day and you're not with your significant other. Then you come home and you're tired of your job, and then you're supposed to figure out time to spend together. And that seems really difficult to me. I like the way we do it.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you had that taste of the top 40 life and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm sure just being able to share what you love with your wife on stage, I'm sure you wouldn't trade that for the world.
No. And I was always much more of a normal guy, to be honest. Chasing sort of a pop star ring really wasn't in the cards for me internally. I wasn't that guy who wanted the world to see who I am and they're going to hear me and believing your own hype. And to be honest, when you're an artist that's successful, you have to project so much energy and will onto others so that they get on the train with you. And I'm talking about record companies, songwriters, producers, to the general public, to everybody. It takes a ton of weird worship of yourself to do that. And I was never going to be that guy. So it was kind of destined that I wasn't going to have much success with that, to be honest.
Kevin, is there is there a song that you would like to play that you've written recently at all that you would like our listeners to hear from you?
There's a song called It Could Have Been Us that's on YouTube that I did sometime last year. I really love that song. But I tell you, there's also a song, and this is a song I'm most proud of, and I know we can't play this, but it's a Christmas song called Christmas Crazy Town. That is, to me, my most well-crafted thing I've ever done in my life. I'm trying to get it to Michael Bublé because he would be the right guy to sing it and perform it. But that is the song I'm most proud of. But
do you have an MP3 of that one, Kevin?
It's on YouTube, but yes, I do.
Tell you what, I mean, there's no reason we can't play it. Would you like us to play it on here on the 80s at 8?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. You want to introduce Christmas at Crazy Town, and we'll talk a little bit right after that?
Yeah, here's a song that will absolutely encapsulate everything that happens in your family house. If your family's as nutty and loud and obnoxious as mine is, you are going to identify with this song. It's called Christmas Crazy Town.
That was Christmas Crazy Town with Mr. Kevin Paige. We were joined by him. Thank you so much for sharing your music with us, Kevin.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it.
I'll tell you what, there's one more song from your 1989 album that I would like to play. It's my personal favorite from the album, and wasn't a single, but it's a song I just love. I'd like to talk a little bit about it. It's You Put Me in Another World, and I love that song.
Oh, cool. Well, it's got a happy little vibe that's catchy, and you know, there's nothing negative about it. It's just all happiness. So I'm glad you like that.
For sure. Let's play that now, and then we will recap everything, and I'll let you on your way. But just thank you so much for joining us, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Want to introduce this one for me?
This is one of my songs off my debut record that was probably the most fun to play live, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's called You Put Me in Another World.
That was You Put Me in Another World by Kevin Paige. We're joined by Kevin. Talk to me, what was that song like to write, and what was kind of the meaning behind that one?
Gosh, that was 35 years ago. I remember. I really loved the happy sound of, I think it was Prince Kiss, the song Kiss. Yep. And it was so simple. And I'm like, man, how can something so simple be funky? So I was like, I want to do something not trying to rip off a song, but something similar in its kind of major chord, happy pop ear candy kind of vibe. So that's what I was going for. And that was one of the songs I got a record deal with. I did write that song before getting the record deal. So those tunes are always special because they were part of you getting there.
Excellent. Yeah, no. And like you said, so many songs that we know and love are so simple.
Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do. Like I said, my background was so like Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder, where the music was so complicated. And I loved all that complicated stuff, but that was not happening on radio. So I was always looking for a way to, how can I scale it back? You know, don't use those crazy chords. Nobody wants to hear those, you know?
You bet. Kevin, question is, I just need to know if this is an internet rumor or if this is the truth. Are you the voice behind the AutoZone jingle?
Well, yes, I was for different phases of it. There was one that ran maybe a year ago, and it had been running for several years, Get in the Zone, AutoZone. Yes, that was me. I sang that. The AutoZone is based out of Memphis, and a friend of mine wrote the jingle, and he's the producer for that jingle, and he got me in to sing it. And I've done several other things for AutoZone, corporate things for their use, not necessarily the radio, but yep, that was me. That's
so cool. That is awesome. And just to recap, Kevin, trip down memory lane, how fun was it we talked about the shows you did and opening for Debbie Gibson and the videos and that year or two. How was it an enjoyable part of your life, or was it something that you look back and with fond memories of? Oh, absolutely. I wish I could have gotten more dates with a tour like the Debbie Gibson. It's really expensive to be on tour, and they don't pay you when you're opening for people. So you have to just, I had the opportunity to open for the New Kids on the Block back then as well. And we didn't do it because it was just so expensive and they don't pay you to. So I did a lot more shows on my own where it was more cost effective. But yes, when you're playing in an arena in front of thousands of people and you're a new artist, it's just the best in the world. You want to do it every night. You know, one video I keep saying is that Club MTV was a kind of a spring break. What was that experience like? Again, I was always kind of nervous and scared because there was all these, veterans like Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing right after us. MC Hammer was on before us, I think. I mean, it was nuts to be surrounded by all that and be a newcomer. And you don't have any sense of, oh, I'm a big shot. You have more a sense of, oh my gosh, these are really successful people around me. But I do have a funny story. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I think spring break, Julie Brown, downtown Julie Brown, had me come in the trailer just to get out of the heat or something. It was like a dressing room. And I'm in there and she starts changing for her next segment. So she's dropping all of her clothes. And I'm being this nice, polite Southern boy I am. I just turn away and didn't look. But I'm like,
this is like so Hollywood. They just don't think twice about, you know, you do what you got to do in show business. Sorry, I'm changing my clothes. You know, I was just like, wow, this is weird.
Wow.
I know that story didn't really go anywhere, but
no, that's
like,
a cool story.
Everybody's like, did you look? I'm like, no, I didn't look. That's not what a gentleman does.
Absolutely. No, that's a great story. And I just appreciate you telling everything. And just, I'll tell you what, I recommend any of our listeners to take a look at your YouTube channel. You have some great music, Kevin, both you and your wife, and just things you've written. You're so talented. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.